All right, we are following the developing details from this story. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. Good to be with you, John. Also happening right now, Israel says it will begin peace negotiations with Lebanon, focusing on disarming Hezbollah. The first meeting is set for next week at the State Department. All of this after a series of strikes in Beirut put a permanent agreement at risk.
Meanwhile, President Trump says the United States will keep a presence near Iran until a final peace deal is reached and the Strait of Hormuz is fully reopened. CENTCOM providing an update on the status of American troops in the region. Listen here.
U.S. forces have paused offensive operations in accordance with the ongoing ceasefire. However, we remain present. We remain vigilant and we remain ready if called. To all our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, guardians, and Coast Guardsmen operating forward, you represent the strongest, most lethal military the world has ever known.
We have complete coverage for you right now. Retired four-star General David Petraeus will join us in moments. Peter Doocy's at the White House tracking the impact of the Strait's closure.
But first, we go to our chief foreign correspondent, Trey Yingst, who's live with all the latest from Tel Aviv. Trey?
Yeah, John, good afternoon. A significant development today as Israel's prime minister announced talks are scheduled with Lebanon. The prime minister said in a statement, quote, "In light of Lebanon's repeated request to open direct negotiations with Israel, I instructed the cabinet yesterday to begin direct negotiations with Lebanon as soon as possible. The negotiations will focus on the disarmament of Hezbollah and the regulation of peaceful relations between Israel and Lebanon. Israel appreciates the call made today by the Prime Minister of Lebanon to demilitarize Beirut. This does come after Israel launched a series of strikes yesterday targeting Hezbollah across the country, and earlier a new warning by Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian about these Israeli strikes in Lebanon that said in part, quote, "The continuation of these aggressions will render negotiations meaningless. Our hands will remain on the trigger, and Iran will never abandon its Lebanese brothers and sisters." International focus does remain on the Strait of Hormuz, where reports indicate 8 vessels have passed since the ceasefire began. Iran's deputy foreign minister says the strait is open, adding this today.
Those technical restrictions are very much connected to the wartime condition, and it takes time to be removed. So safe passage is secured. Strait of Hormuz is open, but of course, each tankers and each vessel should make necessary arrangements with the Iranian authorities to be able to securely pass the strait.
A lot of details to be worked out this weekend. Vice President J.D. Vance will be joined by Special Envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff in Islamabad, Pakistan, to talk directly with the Iranians. John, Sandra?
All right, Trey Yingst with the latest for us. Trey, thank you so much. Sandra?
All right, so right now we are seeing some positive developments in the United States stock market with the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 326 points. You can see it started the day in the red, but it has since turned around and gone positive. This would be the second day of gains on hopes this Iran ceasefire can be sustained. Let's get an update from the White House. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy has the latest details from there for us. Hello, Peter.
And Sandra, now that in the last day and a half we have seen oil prices come down as much as any single day since COVID, officials here are really optimistic that they will soon be proven right about gas prices.
Since we produce so much oil, then it's been much less disruptive, if disruptive at all, really in the U.S., aside from high gas prices, which I know are a big concern for lots of people. But once the strait's open, those gas prices will go back to normal relatively quickly.
In the meantime, officials in the West Wing have been tasked with highlighting good economic news that has nothing to do with the war in Iran. And they have decided to send President Trump on a West Coast swing to promote the impact last year's Big Beautiful Bill can have on this year's tax returns.
That's a huge win for our seniors and also for our middle class and working families across the country with the no tax on tips provision and the no tax on overtime. Next week is tax week. You'll hear a lot from the president about how his policies have benefited the American people, and I'm proud to report that the president will be traveling next week to the great states of Nevada and Arizona to tout this historic accomplishment.
President Trump has policy meetings listed on his schedule at 1:30 and 2 and 5 and 6, and in between at 4 o'clock there's a Maha roundtable. A busy day. Surprisingly, everything there is listed as closed press, and it's possible that they are doing that to divert maximum attention to the First Lady's statement next hour. Sandra.
Yeah, those energy prices, crazy volatile. Right now, they're up $3, Peter, but still holding steadily below $100 a barrel. Thank you for the update. Let's get to John now.
All right, Sandra, thanks very much. Let's bring in retired four-star general and former CIA director David Petraeus. General, I'd like to, and thank you for being with us, by the way, get to the Straits of Hormuz in just a second, but I wanted to first of all ask you about the breaking news that Israel and Lebanon will soon meet about carving some sort of peace deal between the two of them and disarming Hezbollah. I mean, back in 1982, Israel successfully put enough pressure on Lebanon to expel the PLO. Do you think these talks could lead to something similar?
Well, it'll be challenging. There actually has been progress as a result of the earlier pressure on Hezbollah a year or more ago that enabled the actual election finally, after a year of wrangling, of a president in Lebanon and a speaker of the parliament, and it wrested some of the power away from the Hezbollah coalition in the parliament. This campaign has obviously degraded Hezbollah further. It has made a very significant point that the Lebanese government and armed forces do need to disarm Hezbollah, or they are going to see further incidents like this one, which has been challenging for the entire country, not just the part of Lebanon in which Hezbollah has its strongholds. So one can hope that that will be the case, but it's going to be very difficult because Hezbollah is still, even though very, very substantially degraded, is still quite a formidable military force.
Right, indeed they are, and they still have a lot of missiles under their control as well. So Iran said initially, look, this peace deal, it includes the ceasefire deal at least, includes Lebanon. J.D. Vance came out and said, no, it didn't. Caroline Leavitt came out and said, no, it didn't yesterday. But it does look like Iran is getting a lot of what it wanted vis-a-vis these talks that have now been announced with Israel. But to a large degree, Iran is still playing the same old game that it was playing, threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, trying to draw this out, moving the goalposts, doing nothing but complaining. Do you think that they can really be a legitimate partner in negotiations for a permanent peace deal?
Well, that's a pretty high bar to get over, a legitimate partner, but certainly they will be on the other side of the negotiating table. And the paradoxical issue here, this is not yet answered, but could Iran emerge from this very bruising endeavor in which they've been engaged, this Israeli and U.S. offensive against them, could they emerge much weakened militarily, but perhaps a bit stronger strategically, given the grip that they have on the Strait of Hormuz? This is a very significant development. And it's going to take some real diplomatic skill to get it back to what it was, which is an international waterway, not controlled by any country and open to all without tariffs and tolls. Iran clearly is able right now, because of its ability to disrupt freedom of navigation. It has some real strategic power out of this, and it's using that, of course, to influence developments in Lebanon and try to protect its proxy there, Hezbollah, to the extent that it can. So that's a challenge for the Gulf states and for the United States.
So President Trump yesterday suggested to another news organization that maybe there's some sort of joint administration of the Strait of Hormuz between the United States and Iran. I mean, that might be a way to put a chokehold on Iran and prevent it from ever doing what it did over the last few